The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Monday in the Rib after that quite exciting 4th of July weekend, which everybody violated the law. So let's start off with Commander COVID again.
Commander COVID, huh? Let's see. Here we are. I still had it up. State numbers is 109,974. State deaths is 8,183. Bristol County is 8,321. Fall River had some more cases yesterday, bringing our total to 1617. And we had 106 deaths as of Friday. So that's where we stand on COVID numbers.
Yes, and today the gym's open. So happy days are here again with the gyms. Let's see.
Yes, I was going to say today phase 3 begins. So you should be golden.
Yep, that's where I'm going to head right after the show. Right to the gym. See how long they stay open, though. That's the other question. But we'll see what happens. And well, I had quite an extensive weekend flush this weekend, CJ, which caused a little bit of
consternation
and controversy, I guess. And and you did mention the fireworks, which were just deplorable. I mean, they were just relentless in every neighborhood that I know of, and which is ironic because we were told that the fireworks was going to be monitored very closely, and it was the worst year I've ever heard. I couldn't believe it. It was like being in Fallujah. And I got a few phone calls from people that I could hear the fireworks in their neighborhoods. And it was terrible. And, it's amazing. But, they're illegal in the state of Massachusetts. But why make anything illegal when you don't enforce it? They're not enforcing anything. So.
Well, what was interesting was that somebody sent a drone up and videotaped an audio, an elevated view of the city. And you saw fireworks all over the city going off, not just in one particular area of the city, but all over the city. I mean, it looked like Fallujah with bombs going off everywhere. And people wanted to celebrate. And so, it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. I'll tell you how it's a bad thing. My next door neighbor, who you know very well, Mr. Patello, took photos of his roof yesterday morning, and it showed that I guess the metal balls in the fireworks landed on his roof and burned right into the tiles. So that tells you how dangerous they can be when they're coming out of the sky and it's still hot enough to burn roofing tiles.
Well, guess what? She should be. He should file a claim, and maybe the insurance company will subrogate the city for the lack of enforcement because they are dangerous, and obviously they're also a danger. Look, I understand the need for this hedonism and say we want to watch fireworks, but they're extremely dangerous to property. They're extremely dangerous to personal. I'm sure somebody got injured, and every year we see people blowing their fingers off, blowing their, body parts off, and some people even, becoming, blind. I saw a program on it with the various injuries, the eye injuries, which were pretty bad, and it's crazy. I mean, people don't care. People don't care about laws. If they want to do something and it gives them pleasure, the hell with the law. That's one of the problems we have in the United States. In most countries, they obey the law because if they don't, they're gonna get hammered. But in this country, it's like, oh well, yeah, we're just gonna not obey laws, and nothing's gonna ever happen to them. There will be consequences. Well, if they continue, so hey, it is what it is. We won't have to deal with this till next year, and then next year, hopefully, they're a little bit better at controlling this stuff, and maybe we'll have actual fireworks for the city where people, instead of blowing everything up in their neighborhoods, and I've actually heard of dogs having heart attacks from the stuff. Somebody said that there were dogs that had heart attacks, and dogs get very upset. So it's really animal cruelty, and also there are people that a lot of veterans don't like that constant barrage of sound, and so it's just not fair to the rest of the people. But then again, that's one of the last thing. It's it's not seen very often anymore. Consideration for other people, because people don't care. They're chopping off Columbus's head. I can't figure out that one. Maybe you can enlighten me on why they're chopping Columbus's head off, because all he did was look for India and go in the wrong direction and run into the West Indies. It's like, I don't know what the hell they're chopping his head off for, because all he was a terrible navigator. It's true. What did he do? It's not like he had slaves on his ship. I mean, he was. They were looking for a trade route to India. I don't understand. This whole thing. It's like, okay, the Confederate generals. Now it's Gandhi. Now, because they always make something. They'll paint the picture. Gandhi is was a Hindu nationalist. Please. I mean, he was advocating for his own people who were being discriminated against. So, I mean, look, this is out of control. The country's out of control, and hopefully, we're going to see some change. But it's not. It doesn't look very good. I was just looking at the stats in Chicago: 14 dead, 40 wounded, 77 shootings over the weekend. An eight-year-old girl killed, a 14-year-old boy killed in Chicago, a 7-year-old girl in another community. It's totally out of control, and even in Chicago, the black residents whose children were killed were yelling, "If Black Lives Matter, let it start here," because it's not only police, it's black killing other people in their own neighborhoods, and it's out of control, and nobody looks at it from the looking at the forest rather than the tree. It's always the police, but most of the gun violence is perpetrated within the neighborhoods, and I mean that's a tragic toll. I mean an 8-year-old girl sitting in a car being shot in the head, and 77 shootings. 40 wounded, 14 dead. That's just, this is like a third world country now. This is like we're having a revolt in the streets, and these people are allowing it to happen. So I don't know what's going to happen, but somebody better put a lid on this pot.
Well, I noticed on the news last night that I guess in one of the demonstrations they were using fireworks to shoot at the police, and I'm like, what is this? IEDs? This was getting to be, it's getting to be so ridiculous that we've gone, as we've said before, we've gone from the ridiculous to the sublime. So it makes for a very interesting time. That's for sure. Well, let's move on to phase 3.
Yeah.
What was that?
But they are terrorists because they confiscated from one of the demonstrators a pipe bomb. So that's even worse than fireworks, which can be deadly. But
definitely.
You're right. Phase 3.
Yeah, it makes it difficult. So, let's move on to the phase 3 openings. Let's go over some of the things that people can start seeing. Movie theaters and outdoor performance venues. 40% of individual theaters or screening room capacity. For outdoor performances, singing and playing of brass and wind instruments is discouraged. Museums, cultural, and historical sites. 40% capacity. Consider using timed entry tickets, reservations, and imposing time limits for visits to ensure compliance with occupancy limits. Guided tours, 50% capacity for buses or other vehicles such as trolley, harbor cruise vessel, or duck boat. Walking groups of no more than 10 people. And here's yours, fitness centers and health clubs. Activities such as weight and resistance training, cross training, yoga, martial arts, spin classes, boot camp training, 40% capacity. Equipment, weight machines, treadmills, bikes, etc., and exercise areas are spaced out at least 14 feet apart. Distribute hand sanitizer and disposable wipes abundantly throughout the space for workers and customers to disinfect their hands and equipment before and after use. And certain indoor recreational activities with low potential for contact, including batting cages, driving ranges, bowling alleys, go-karts, rock climbing facilities. Things like roller skating rinks, trampolines, obstacle courses, and laser tags will open in part 2 of phase 3. 40% capacity. And professional sports teams under the authority of league-wide rules may hold games. No fans. So that's what phase 3 is going to offer you. And this is only phase 3 part 1. So we have a part 2 coming up. And that will be in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, we'll see how this opens, because it's beyond me why they couldn't open some of these places where they're outdoors and it was easy to be social distance. It's like a golf driving range, so you let them go every other cubicle there to hit the balls, and they're out in the open air. I don't know. This is, to me, this is. They've really messed this whole thing up, because and the contradictions. Isn't it amazing that when this first started, everybody was yelling at the federal government and Trump about, oh, don't tell us what to do. It's got to go city by city, state by state, because it depends on the number of cases and where you are, because Montana isn't the same as New York State, and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's correct. But now, all of a sudden, they're turning it around and they're going, oh, we're getting upticks in this, so we need the federal government to take this over. No, you don't. You need to take charge of your own state. I just saw a video this morning of a Florida beach where they were like ants. Of course, Florida's going to have an uptick in the corona transmission. I mean, they were like flies on that beach. So it's the people. Don't blame the government. Everybody knows what you got to do to minimize your chances of not getting a disease. It's people's stupidity. Then they had a demonstration that they would rather be sick than wear a mask. So, well, look, if you want to do that, get your own people, and so stay away from those people. It's all about. It's not about the disease anymore. They know the disease. They're getting better at treating it. They're looking for therapeutic ways to deal with it, and vaccines and whatever they have to do. But the reality is now the transmission, they know how to slow down the transmission of the disease. And the problem is not the medicine. It's not the medical community's recommendations. It's the inability of Americans to ever do what they're told. So go ahead, medical guy.
Well, it's interesting to hear a lot of that. People don't understand that they have control over what they do. They don't have control over what everyone else does, and that's where the problem comes in. This morning I was watching the news, and I noticed that they had some standouts for no masks. They had groups of people out there with no masks on, holding signs saying that this is my freedom. And yes, you're right. Masks are uncomfortable. Masks are bothersome. To some people, they restrict their breathing capability. But masks not only prevent you from giving the virus to someone else, it prevents someone else from giving the virus to you. So to me, a mask shows some consideration. Now, when I go out from my house to my car, I'm not wearing a mask. When I'm driving around in my car, I'm not wearing a mask. But if I get out of my car to go into a store or a restaurant or something along those lines, I put my mask on. I do that not because of me, but because of my what word do I want to say here? My my concern for other people. And that really says a lot more about the people who wear the masks.
Yeah. And and that's the problem. Common sense, the least common of senses. People don't use it. But I don't know what our time is right now, but I think we've got to get into some important stuff here because we all know what's going on with the alleged possible issues with the park board, and I know that you dealt with that at length. So you also mentioned my name in a weekend flush a couple of times, and I did have a conversation with the mayor, and I want to put that out because I did say I would, give his side of it, and this is what he told me. He said that fundamentally, that as far as he is concerned, this is about his ability to put whoever he wants on a park board. Fundamentally, he said, he's the appointing authority, and they had no right to give themselves an extension in their term. And this is what's going to be, if it does go to litigation, this is what's going to be litigated. Now, there have been a whole bunch of other factors brought in about, money and misuse of money or lack of oversight on that money and lack of bills and whether those records were gone or not there. And we all know the history of this city and its record keeping. 30 years ago, I had a conversation with again. He said, "Well, they're doing the audits." Well, I don't believe they're really doing accurate audits because, as we know, you can't do an accurate audit if you don't have the actual figures, and figures are never really available. We've heard it numerous times in front of the council. I don't have those numbers. We can't find those numbers. And all the way back in 90, and he did say, I don't want to know, 90, I don't care about 90. Well, I care about 90 because in 1991, when that arbitration was over, the city said they were going to fix the way they kept their records so they could do accurate audits, but they never have. And that's just my opinion. And we can agree to disagree that they're doing an audit. I think that audit is absolute BS. Any audit they do, because they never get figures accurately, and sometimes when they're really important, they mysteriously can't find those figures. They disappear. So I know that you had a few discussions about this with the mayor, and obviously I just wanted to give his perspective that forget about all the other stuff. As far as what he told me was the only thing that they are going to, if they have to litigate, their position will be that it's an absolute right of him as the appointing authority to do whatever he wants. Now, whether you people feel that is right or wrong is subject to the individual. I truly don't believe. I think boards should be elected because when politicians make boards made up of their friends and supporters, those boards are nothing more than rubber stamps and buffers for them not to take the heat when the board does something that's controversial. So whether it be fire commission is or anything else. So, but I'll let you weigh in because you wrote a very, very long and one of your War and Peace versions of the weekend flush. So,
well, what was very interesting, my position has always been the same with boards and commissions. I do not believe, and I also don't believe that the mayor should have as much power as he does. And I think that's where this charter, this joke of a charter, this cluster of a charter failed. Okay? The people, from what I've been told, the people in their survey wanted ward councilors. Mike Mioza didn't want them to protect his friends on the city council. It appears, that's my opinion. I want to make that very clear. To protect his friends on the council, because most of them came from the same ward. And that would mean that 3 or 4 of them would have to run against each other to keep their seat. And too bad. I believe we should have ward councilors. I think it's necessary so that the entire population of the city is represented. This way, they have their own counselor in their ward, and they know where they can go right away. Secondly, I think that all boards and commissions should be elected. Number one. And number two, should not be paid. I do not believe that any board or commission should be paid. And we have boards that are paid. They are getting stipends, and I don't believe they should be getting stipends. I don't believe that anyone should be getting stipends. The park board by law is prohibited from receiving any money to do it, to serve on the park board. But people take the time out of their day. If you want to represent your constituents, your people, your friends, your community in government, that is a good way to get an entrance into working with the city, to be working with what needs to happen. By the mayor appointing them, like you said, and it's not just this mayor, so let's make that clear. Every mayor always appoints their friends. It's always their friends. It's not people like you or I who are going to cause problems, who are going to make a stink, because we are going to do it by the book. They don't care about by the book, which is obvious because, again, and nothing against Jeff Sylvia. I mean, he's a wonderful guy. He's a great dispatcher, but he served on the park board for 20 some odd years, and nothing was done by the book. And during that 20 some odd years, there were questions of how the money was spent on the perpetual care fund. For 20 some odd years, they bought property that they're not even using, that DCM is using. They put a foundation down for a building that hasn't been built, that DCM is using. Come on, that's not what perpetual care funds are for from the cemetery. They're for the embellishment, upkeep, and improvement of the cemetery, not for engineering studies. The cemetery doesn't need engineering studies. The cemetery needs more graves. And this is what happens. This is what happens all along. Now, accordingly, you had stated to me that the mayor said he had not even heard of perpetual care funds until yesterday. Is that correct?
That is correct, because when I called him to get his side, and he stipulated that it was only about his ability to appoint, which is to me, okay, that, because what we were talking about is another issue. But his words to me were, I have absolutely no idea what the actual fund is. So he had no idea that was his words, and I have no reason to lie. He had no idea what it was. And he reiterated that to me a few times, and then he went and checked on it and checked about it. And now supposedly he's looking into these things. But as you said, there's always a lot of discrepancies about funds, because in our conversation, I did mention things like the time they gave them money to fix the roof on a Bank Street Armory that never got fixed. And then they got more money to fix it. And nobody ever investigated what they did with the original money that they got, and why they didn't fix it when they got money to fix it. So, see, this is the kind of thing that the Fall River taxpayers have to be outraged about. They have to be outraged about perpetual care money being used to do things that it wasn't designed to do. And this is the problem that we have in all areas of the city budget. They squirrel money away, they move money around, they use money for what it's not being designated for. And we know that's the reason they never have any health care money left. They're always short, because they take it out and use and divert it. And this is a problem. It's not, and I don't want to mix apples and oranges. Let me make that perfectly clear. I don't want to lump this in with this, because according to the mayor, and I want to reiterate that again, as far as he's concerned, or at least in our last conversation, This was about his ability to appoint the people to that board. And that is what it's about. Now, as far as the minutia and all the positions, the legal positions, I'm not going to get into that because my opinion doesn't mean anything. The fact is that a judge will determine whose interpretation is correct on that particular narrow frame of issue. But it doesn't remove the fact that there are questions why they bought land for DCM when that's not what perpetual care money was designated for. And this is a problem that the taxpayers have to look into. And this is why we always talk about a real audit, a forensic audit. And, but as far as the man in my last conversation with the man, it was about strictly his ability to put in who he wants.
And nobody's saying that he can't put in who he wants, because that's clearly defined in the law. Okay, but the law says that he can't just pick people at random and take them off the park board. It says that only the city council with a 2/3 vote can remove a member of the park board. That's what the law says. The law doesn't say that the mayor has the right to remove somebody, okay, unilaterally. It says they must be removed by the city council with a 2/3 vote of the city council. 2/3 vote. That's not an easy mark to make, okay, because that's 6 votes. So that's not easy to do.
Yeah. It will be an interesting case because his response to that was that they voted themselves back into office, and that was an illegal vote because he was the person who was supposed to put them, reappoint them. So I'm not going to get into it. Like I said, my opinion on that is totally irrelevant because the reality is the only opinion that's going to count is going to be the court's opinion, and that will be framed by the city attorney and obviously the park board people who removes attorney, and it will be framed in court. And it's going to be an interesting argument because I do like those same court cases where there's some arguments. So we got a minute left, but we're going to get into this a little bit more. But I hope I clarified the mayor's position, because I did say we gave him the opportunity to give him both sides, and it's all about that. So you guys remember, wear your masks.
Well, thank you very much, Chip. Thank you very much, Chip. But we're out of time. So I want to thank you all for watching, inviting us into your home. And please remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable.